Virus pandemic a national emergency. Well, okay, but what does that mean for Oregon? And you got an email from your crazy uncle. He says if you hold your breath for 10 seconds, you are safe from the coronavirus. Is it true? Look, we're going to talk about this one in just a second, so stick around. And while most of us raid the grocery store shelves and hunker down, meet the folks who won't let a little pandemic keep them from a vacation of a lifetime. Here's the story.
All right, welcome. Hi, I'm Dan Haggerty. This is The Story. It is Friday. I think we're all ready for the weekend, aren't we? This has been a stressful week. I don't want to be a downer here, but one of the things I think that makes coronavirus a uniquely awful problem is that it's kind of hard to cope. This is the kind of time that we need to come together, get our mind off the crisis, watch a game, get together with friends or family, have the Shamrock Run. But we can't, and that makes things a little harder. Now, I don't really have the answers for you, but I do have some recommendations. First, this is Oregon, guys. Remember that. Get outside, go on a hike, do some fishing, build a fort with your kids. You'll feel better. Second, find community where you can. Now, we have it for you here if you want that. We're always here to answer your questions, to listen to your concerns. Maybe you just want to vent. If that's you, go ahead. We got you. So reach out. Use email, Facebook, Instagram. You can talk to us on Twitter. Use the hashtag HeyDan. And please, stop buying all the toilet paper. Now, let's get to our big story tonight. What else? It is coronavirus. In today's new developments, the president officially declaring a national emergency. Oregon was already in a state of emergency. The question is, for you and for me, what does all of this mean? Well, the federal emergency means that more federal money can be sent to us here, which is a good thing. It means that some of the federal agencies will now only focus on this. They won't have to worry about the typical red tape. For instance, like if Oregon needs some more doctors, the feds could let doctors who are licensed in, say, Idaho, cross the border and come help us here. Now, President Trump also promised more than 1 million new tests would be available next week. He says 5 million would be available in the next month, and that could help us with that whole 80 tests a day thing that we're dealing with right now, a fact that has a lot of people pointing fingers. A reporter asked the president if he'll take the blame for this slow rollout. He had this to say.
Yeah, no, I don't take responsibility at all because we were given a set of circumstances, and we were given rules, regulations, and specifications from a different time.
I will be interested to hear how Governor Kate Brown reacts to that based on what she told us today. Now, we talked to her on this conference call this afternoon, and frankly, she seemed angry, like mad at the federal response specifically. She says that she asked the Trump administration for help at the beginning of the month. She says Oregon needs medical supplies badly. She asked for 600,000 masks, 400,000 respirators, along with gloves and protective gear. She says Oregon has waited and waited and waited.
On March 3rd, I sent a letter to the vice president. He called me literally the next day and assured me that help it was on the way. We have been calling every single day since then. Earlier this week, on Tuesday, I called Secretary Azar and said, we have not received a frickin' response to our request.
I think we can say frickin' on TV, right? I hope we can. Now, she says the CDC, they blew her off too, and she finally heard back Thursday and learned Oregon will get just a tenth of what the state needs. Now, that's something I talked to Oregon Senator Ron Wyden about just a few hours ago, and he also answered a lot of your questions. I want to start by talking about testing. In Oregon, we've tested 524 people so far total. We still have about 80 tests every single day. Now let's draw some comparisons to our neighbors. The state of Washington has 1,000 tests a day. California has 7,400 tests every day. And even when you consider population differences, we are still way behind. Here's a question from Michael Romano. He said, hey Dan, ask him straight, no BS, non-political and very specific as to what he's doing to get testing kits in Oregon, how many are coming, when, and how often they will be replenished and distributed.
What I can tell you is that the president always says that he's making the United States number one. We are not number one in terms of testing. For example, I and a whole host of senators yesterday, Democrats and Republicans, really pushed the administration very hard about why we are so dramatically lagging South Korea. I mean, this is a country that should not be far, far ahead of the United States. So what I'm doing is I'm using my position as the ranking Democrat on the Senate Finance Committee to push the Trump administration as hard as I can in a bipartisan way to step up their game in terms of testing, trying to make the protective equipment more available. But I'm not going to kind of mince words with your viewers. I mean, this is an administration that actually closed the pandemic office in 2018 when we should have been preparing for exactly what we're dealing with now, and we're playing catch-up ball.
So events are being canceled in the state. Businesses are closing down. People aren't going out. Schools are closing. Part-time workers and business owners are not getting paid. Lorna Dryden, she said wage loss is the bottom line for people. Can they get unemployment benefits? We had another viewer on Twitter ask, what are we doing to protect against evictions and penalties of people who are losing jobs and can't get unemployment? Now I'm going to ask you a little bit more generally, what can we do to help people, keep people afloat as they're trying to keep this virus from spreading?
I want your viewers to know I'm the point person in the United States Senate on improving unemployment compensation for folks who are hurting. And what we're trying to do is model it a little bit after the disaster program. After 9/11, we saw an effort to really speed up the unemployment compensation, make it generous, because it's only a few $100s a week for so many Oregonians. So I'm focused on that. I'm also focused, though, on trying to get assistance to people who haven't been able to find, jobs. We have lots of low-income folks, communities of color, and others. So again, this is a question of who do you want to help? Do you want to get help to these workers who really are 2/3 of the American economy? The consumer drives the, American economy. Or do you think, for example, the president spent, the better part of a week saying that he wanted a Social Security payroll tax cut? That would have provided hundreds of billions of dollars to the biggest, corporations. It would have hurt Social Security, and we would have had, once again, a skewed set of priorities. I think I blocked it.
So what should people expect if they are a part-time worker and they worked at the Moda Center and now all these events are canceled so they can't make their buck, they can't pay their rent? What should they think? I
want them, and this is what I'm working on, to get improved and quick unemployment compensation help. I want them to get help if they haven't had sick days and the like. And in particular, I want them to know that they can get easier access to these health care services when right now they really feel that they're in the dark. I think what I've been struck by being home since late last night and getting out and talking to people, the biggest frustration, beyond the fact that, for example, we lag behind these other countries and the like, which comes up everywhere, is that they just feel in the dark.
All right. First of all, thank you to everybody at home who sent in those questions for me to ask the senator. I also asked about a lack of ventilators, which we discussed just a minute ago. Why lawmakers aren't back in Washington right now? Why is he here in Oregon? Why aren't they back there trying to figure out what to do about this? And about his federal vote-by-mail legislation, which is starting to look a lot more and more important as we see Louisiana postponed its primary next week because of coronavirus. You can see the entire interview. We talked for a while. Right now it's on the KGW YouTube channel. Now I want to bring us to our very serious and very frightening quote of the day from an open letter from doctors to Governor Kate Brown. They say, quote, "We see ourselves making decisions in the next 2 weeks on who will live and who will die because we don't have resources sufficient to care for them." 400+ doctors signed their names to this. They want the governor to act strongly and now because they're worried what will happen if we don't. They mention, and we've talked a lot about this graph you see here called flattening the curve. That means doing our best to slow the spread of the virus, to give our doctors and nurses the ability to help everyone. So back to that letter. Woodrow Wilson had his 14 points. These doctors have 19 recommendations. They want paid leave for workers, a call center to help hospitals coordinate with each other, a tracking system for people to self-quarantine. They also have some more extreme recommendations, things like clearing hotels to use as shelters, telling people not to leave their house unless they absolutely have to, and of course, more testing, way more than we're doing right now. And to make it easy, tests that you can do at home or maybe in a drive-thru. Look, this isn't a Facebook meme. These are people on the front lines seeing this disease firsthand. And speaking of memes, I hate to debunk these types of things that we have to do that, but for a lot of people, this is quite literally life and death. So here it goes. You might have gotten this email or seen this on Facebook. It claims that if you take a deep breath and hold it for 10 seconds, it means you don't have an infection. It also claims if you sip water and keep your mouth wet, it will wash the virus into your stomach instead of into your lungs. Some cite Taiwanese experts. Others cite Stanford University. I heard it from one of those doctors in the 1800s who used to prescribe cocaine for the common cold. People, please, what are we doing here? What are we sharing? We heard from Stanford. We asked them about it. They said that it's not true, and it's certainly not from them. Bottom line, there was a lot of misinformation going around out there. A good rule of thumb, here to protect you and yourself and others, don't share this stuff online if it seems fishy. If you see something that doesn't seem right, use the hashtag HeyDance. Send it into us. We'll check it out for you. And a lot of you have been using that hashtag to reach out and ask us your questions. Thank you for that. We've been getting a ton of them. Kristen Severin's here now to help answer for you. What you got today?
We've been getting so many good questions. So the first is something I've seen a lot. Is it still safe to go to a restaurant? I did a lot of reading on this. Experts say you want to stay home. You want to limit your contact, so you really should not be going out. If you do go out, they say make sure you don't go to a crowded place. You can be 6 feet away from someone and wipe things down. Wipe down the menu. Wipe down, the table in front of you.
The menu, yeah, exactly. What else you got?
All right, so we have what is so magical about gathering less than 250 people? Do we want to stop this or not? So we asked several experts about this. Our PSU doctor said there really doesn't seem to be anything about this 250 number. Some states are doing 500, some say 100, Oregon says 250. The bottom line is they don't want to get big groups of people together.
Makes sense. What else?
All right, so our next question, this was a good one. What about fruits and vegetables? You can't wash them, so should you just not purchase them? So that means when you're grocery shopping and you want to buy, a fruit or vegetable, our expert said just assume that everything you're about to buy when it comes to fruits and vegetables, that it has been touched, and just make sure that you wash your fruits and vegetables with water, when you get home.
All right, anything else?
All right, last question. How do you take care of yourself best when you get it, or if you get the coronavirus? This was a question on Twitter. So our expert said, if you get it, you're going to want to take care, stay home, stay away from people, drink fluids, take over-the-counter medicines. Now, if you're over 60, or you have trouble breathing, that's a totally different story.
Sure.
You're going to want to call your doctor immediately.
Kristen, thank you. Look, this is one of those places where there is no bad question. All right, anything you got, send it in to us. Use the hashtag HeyDan. Kristen, thanks.
You're welcome.
That's right. Keep tweeting, keep Facebooking, emailing, all that stuff. Use that hashtag HeyDan. We will answer your questions. And look, with all these school closing, I know you got a lot of questions about that. We want to bring a big number to your attention. In the state of Oregon, more than half of our 550,000 students depend on free or reduced lunch programs. Their families, they struggle as it is, and a lot of you have been reaching out to us wondering about those kids. Mike Benner shows us what the schools are doing to help.
No classes at Metzger Elementary School Friday. The Tiger-Tualatin District elected to close one day sooner than what the governor mandated. But you wouldn't necessarily know that by the activity inside Metzger.
I'm boxing up lunches for our children.
That's right. Head cook Rusty Nass is prepping meals for kids on free or reduced lunches. At Metzger alone, more than 50% of the students depend on it.
To be able to come here and eat gives them that sense of security and some stability. And I'm glad to do it.
And perhaps never more so than now, as kids will be out of school for the next 2 weeks at least.
Breakfast will be served from 8 to 8:30 Monday through Friday, and a lunch will be served from 11 to 12:30 Monday through Friday every week that we're closed, including spring break.
Portland Public Schools and Beaverton Schools are two of the 3 largest districts in the state, and they are doing their part to make sure kids get free and reduced lunches. All you have to do is go to their website for a list of the schools, plenty of them, that are offering meals, and when.
As is the case back at Metzger Elementary School, these are critical services during unprecedented times. And if you ask Rusty Nass, she'll tell you she wouldn't want to be anywhere other than where she is.
I love my job.
Mike Benner for KGW News.
Beautiful weather, rock bottom prices, neither snow nor rain nor heat nor literal pandemic will keep these cruisers home. And hey, are those cherry tree blossoms? Or wait, is that snow? In March, when the story
Hey, everybody. It's pretty clear to tell you what the weather story today is. It's all about the snow, right? We got some pictures for you. This is from Chris and Tracy Warren. Snow out at their place. This was up in the West Hills. Look at that. It's about a ½ inch on the railing there. It's coming down thickly and quickly for a while. That's at 800 feet up in the hills. And many of you saw some snow, even down in the valley, too. This is a picture from John Kreutzer over in Sherwood of the thick snowfall happening at his place, too. So, yes, we had a little band of snow this morning. Not altogether surprising, just never really thought it would amount to much, and it did not for most of us, basically. So, here's what we're looking at tomorrow. There's a pretty good chance of seeing snow in the morning no matter what elevation you're at. 33 degrees, snow showers. By noontime, it's mixing with rain and snow, and by 5 o'clock, it's 43. There'll be showers and sunbreaks and even thunderstorms over at the Oregon coast. Now, right now, we had that band move out. There's a new band moving into the coast and the Coast Range right now. So this is going to increase our rain and snow overnight tonight. And as we go into the night and temperatures drop because of darkness, but also because colder air moving in, I think there's a pretty good chance everybody will see at least a little bit of snow. So here's how it plays out. Snow level drops to 500 feet tonight. So that means above that elevation, there will absolutely be some snow. But below that elevation, I think we'll also get a little bit of snow as well. Say from sea level, including the city, up to about 500 feet. So think about halfway up Vista or the Sylvan Overpass or the top of Mount Tabor. That's all roughly about 500 feet. A trace to a ½ inch of snow, sort of like what we had this morning. But above 500 feet, the top of the West Hills, trace to as much as 2 inches of snow. But then it's going to turn to rain showers later in the day, and that'll all end as we go into Saturday night. So, again, we're certainly going to see at least a little bit of snow in the morning, and it's going to stay cold all weekend. Also, that east wind's going to kick in, too. So, yeah, it's definitely winter for the last weekend of winter. Dan?
Hey, thanks, Matt. Perfect weather to hunker down, I think, and spend some time at home, which is, I think, what a lot of people are wanting to do this weekend. But this is typically the time of year where you're thinking about vacation. But I was wondering, how much would you pay to go on a cruise right now? Let me rephrase that. How much would I have to pay you to go on a cruise right now? You know, believe it or not, there are still people out there willing and wanting to hit the 7 seas in a floating hotel resort petri dish, even after the president just banned them for 30 days. You got some companies offering these crazy sweet travel deals, some customers that are willing to go for it. Kristen Severance is back with some people who are crazy for cruising.
So we went out on cheap miles, we came back on cheap miles.
Gene and Carol Head heard about some of the coronavirus cruise ship disasters over the last month. The Diamond Princess was stuck for weeks off the coast of Japan after passengers became sick. 700 out of 3,700 passengers tested positive. 6 people died. And the Grand Princess, which recently docked in Oakland, after half the people on board tested positive for coronavirus. The couple said they still weren't worried. They said they have no health problems or underlying conditions.
So I had no concerns whatsoever.
Since one case had already been announced in Clark County, I thought, might as well, nothing to worry about. My chances of getting it anywhere are about the same.
But what if they got stuck at sea?
I'm retired, so if they kept me on the ship for 3 or 4 weeks, you know, they have pretty good food. As long as they didn't lock you in your cabin, and I think the only people that had to stay in their cabin were people that had symptoms. And if I had symptoms, I'd want to stay in my cabin. But otherwise, a 3-week cruise instead of a 1-week cruise, as far as I was concerned.
After a flight to Tampa and a 5-hour layover, they were headed to Miami to board a Princess ship this past Sunday until Carol got an email.
She says, "Did you see the email?" And I said, "No," but she's like shaking. And she says, "Our cruise has been canceled." And I said, "You're kidding." She says, "No, it's been canceled. Check it out." So I sat down and checked it out, and sure enough, it had been canceled.
The CDC wanted to test 2 crew members on board after they transferred from the Grand Princess ship in California, where passengers had coronavirus. Princess has now canceled all voyages for the next 2 months and will cut short some current trips. The outbreak has cost U.S. cruise lines nearly $750 million since January.
Princess is going to have to do some pretty good PR to get people back on their ships.
But Gene and Carol say they have no problem scheduling another cruise in the fall. Princess offered to refund their flights, hotel, the cost of their cruise, and give them a credit for another cruise in a year.
I feel great. I love a bargain, and I would do this every time if it worked this way.
All right, Kristen Severance joining us now. And to be fair, we interviewed them a couple of days ago. So much has changed between then and now. Do they still feel the same way?
They do. I talked to Gene just today. He told me he was looking up, flights and cruises. Things are 50% off. So they want to go on a cruise on another line with another company that hasn't been hit with coronavirus and then save the free cruise for down the road.
I know a lot of people at home going, oh my gosh, I can't believe they do this. But there's also a lot of people out there saying, so what? I'd do the same thing.
Yeah, but not to be a buzzkill here. They really are going against what health experts are recommending. They're saying do not get on a cruise ship.
Let us know what you think. Reach out. Use the hashtag #HeyDan. Kristen, thank you.
You bet.
Lakeo's Kevin Love, spreading the love. And he has some good advice for us all when the story continues.
It's an eerie time to be a sports fan. No March Madness, no NBA. Heck, my producer was supposed to go to the Blazers game on Sunday, so she's bummed. So are thousands of other people. We get it. Trust me, I like basketball too. But I've been thinking a lot about the guy pouring your beer or the woman helping you find your seat. They're not working right now. They got bills to pay. So here's some good news for him. Jason Quick, the Blazers reporter for The Athletic, says that a source told him the organization is working right now to get part-time employees paid for the canceled home games this month, which is awesome. But the Moda Center, they host a lot more than Blazers games, and those events are all getting canceled too, which is where Neela Madison comes in. She started a GoFundMe to help out the Moda staff who just lost a whole bunch of hours. And if you're a Blazers fan, she might sound familiar to you. She's the person who runs the fan account Pinwheel Empire. Check out our social accounts for a link to that fundraiser and drop a dime if you can. Hey, shout out to a hometown hero, Kevin Love, taking some action on this too. He's donating $100,000 to the people who work with the Cleveland Cavaliers and the arena staff there who aren't working right now. Real stand-up guy. I like to see this. In his Instagram caption, he says he hopes others will follow his lead too. Now, Kevin's been pretty open in the past about his struggles with mental health, and he addressed that a little bit here as well. This pandemic has us all a little on edge, so take Kev's advice, take care of yourself, and reach out to others in need. And while we're on the topic of big sports stars doing big things, let's talk about a message that I got on Twitter. Katrina Lake said, hey, Dan, everybody's being bombarded with COVID-19 news. I get it. It's scary. But let's talk about Megan Rapinoe, Alex Morgan, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath, Carly Lloyd, and the other amazing players with the U.S. women's national soccer team. These women deserve to be heard, not buried in the news. Now, she's referring to a moment on Wednesday when the entire team wore their jerseys inside out during the pregame so that the logo of the U.S. Soccer Federation would be hidden. All you can make out were the 4 stars above that patch that represent each of their World Cup victories. Now, this was a protest against wage inequality in U.S. soccer and women's sports in general. It also follows a report by a BuzzFeed News reporter who is covering the equal pay lawsuit that's underway right now. And in court documents, attorneys representing U.S. soccer argued that male players have, quote, more responsibility, and pointed to biological differences in, quote, indisputable science to argue that the men's team requires a higher level of skill. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. It's already forced the Federation president to resign. Now, I want to remind you, it's Women's History Month. And I think this team might be in the middle of making some history. Hey, let's get to some comments right now. Somebody said, hey, Dan, you got a question from a reader asking nicely for a non-BS, non-political answer about virus testing to politician Wyden. Then during the broadcast, you broadcast BS nonsense of a politician on your show. What gives, Dan? Are you dead stupid or just biased? Well, I don't have anything to say about the last couple, but I'll tell you how this works. You heard me ask the question. He answered the question. You have a vote. He's our politician. That's what this is all about. We each get an opinion on things. We want to give you some perspective to have yours. Stacy Bird writing in and saying the grocery store was apocalyptic today. People are hoarding more than just TP. Any concerns with supply chain? I don't know if there's any technical concern with the supply chain, but we're all in this together. I don't think that anybody needs 150 rolls of TP right now. Let's think about everybody. We all have families. We all have needs. Let's take care of everyone as a community. Just my take on the whole thing. And Kelly on Facebook, love this new show. I'm a journalism graduate and a news junkie. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you. We appreciate you. That's the story.